Hello and welcome to our first module together. I am Sarah, I'm your professor for this course, and I'm really excited to dive in and learn all about statistics together. And welcome. So definitely feel free to reach out through Slack. I've been loving seeing all the introductions so far. So without further delay, let's go into some of the content I have prepared for today. And we'll be talking a little bit about some of the concepts we'll be covering, a little bit about how things will be done, our syllabus, of course, and start off with the tools that are required for this class. So again, I'm really excited to be here, to be your teacher and help you learn a foundational introduction to probability and statistics. So each module will review a chapter of the textbook with a recorded presentation like this. That will also cover how to solve the exercises using Python. These demonstrations will align pretty much exactly with the homework assignments. And in order to complete the readings and have access to the homework questions and case study data, the textbook is required. The most straightforward way to access the textbook is through renting it online. The cost is $55, and I provided a link on Blackboard to this direct access. So I would recommend exploring our Blackboard website and familiarize yourself with the different modules and future assignments. We will use Blackboard to collect assignments and receive grades. And homework assignments are on a weekly basis, and answers will be posted within a week of completing the assignment. So talking a little bit about some of our other points of assignments, we have two exams. One is a midterm and one is a final. And both of these exams have two components. One is a technical assignment that will mirror our weekly homework assignments, and the other is a written component that you'll be graded on your ability to explain a statistical concept and provide supporting details. Because core to the power of statistics is the ability to actually communicate your findings and ideas and explain why is any of this stuff really important. So having a written component will help grow this skill set. And there are more details about all of this in the syllabus. So please let me know if there are any questions by using our Slack channel. One thing that I emphasized in the syllabus, any emails that go directly to me that could be applicable to the entire class, I will encourage you, please post it on the Slack channel so that others might benefit from that information that we're sharing. So again, the best way to communicate and primary way is through our Slack channel. And this will really serve as our primary location to receive any help or troubleshooting on homework assignments. So as I mentioned, I love seeing all the introductions. It's a great way to meet your colleagues and network together. Because also for any homework assignments, I would encourage you to collaborate and work together. So please leverage our Slack channel and ask any questions that would benefit the rest of the class. So really the purpose of this is to promote knowledge sharing and facilitate an open discussion. And Blackboard will be used for any class-wide announcements and for posting all the course content and homework assignments. Again, there are more details in the syllabus, but I just wanted to give a high-level overview of some of the key points. And getting more into the content of what we'll be discussing in our whole semester. So in this class, my main objective is to teach how statistics can be used as information. Information is created by evidence, and throughout this class, we will use data to analyze, interpret, and explore different methods to inform a decision that is relevant to real-life business situations. So a lot of the abstract will be creating more applicable side of it. So understanding how data can be used to inform a real-life business decision, all while building on the fundamental concepts of statistics and understanding how patterns might relate to a potential decision that you can inform. And how will we accomplish this? Our course will use a lot of case studies and exercises, and really trying to use real-world data to support any of our explorations. So this will demonstrate some fundamental descriptive and inferential statistics. And as a tool to perform this analysis, we will use Python. And before we get into some of the other details, first I want to give a bit of an introduction on me. I am Sarah. It's great to meet you all virtually. I hope that we can facilitate a little bit more of a two-way communication using Slack and office hours, and potentially if we're interested, when I record this, maybe having students to participate and attend these virtual recordings, so you can ask me questions and stop me if I get into some details that need a little bit more explanation. So a bit about me. I'm an alum of SUNY New Paltz School of Business. And when I was studying there, I was a teacher's assistant for several statistics classes over the years. And that's what eventually provided this opportunity to teach for me. So always good to keep your connections and continue to reach out to the folks that you find as mentors. So I definitely would encourage you to talk to Dean Bacchus. She's definitely one of the best people that I've ever met at SUNY New Paltz, and she's an excellent resource and person to reach out to at your disposal, like at your needs. So a little bit more about me. I have a master's degree in urban informatics from NYU Tannen School of Engineering. And this essentially means data science applied to the city. And a lot of the concepts we will learn in this class will serve as the foundation to a lot of different principles of data science. And the technology that we use is ubiquitous in the industry. So outside of that, academia, I have several years of experience in the world of ESG, or environmental social governance. And I've held a variety of positions in this industry, even in marketing, sales, and data science. I was even a ghostwriter for Forbes.com. And throughout this course, many of the examples that I selected will revolve around themes of sustainability and ESG. I am also the founder and CEO of a civic technology initiative that I launched over the pandemic that is called Block Party. And this uses natural language processing to create transcripts and summarize community board meetings in New York City, where I am based currently. I'm in Manhattan, but I still really love the Hudson Valley and try to get over there anytime I can. So my full-time job, outside of being an adjunct lecturer for our class together, I am a data scientist and machine learning team lead at a software company called Urbint, where we prevent accidents from happening using artificial intelligence. So I'd be happy to connect on LinkedIn and definitely learn more about all of you, perhaps using our Slack channel. So please don't hesitate to connect and introduce yourself. I am also very open to any feedback on our class and ideas for how we can improve it. I'd be happy to kind of consider a little bit of iteration on how we go through this course, and any ideas you have, please definitely feel free to share it with the class. So getting a little bit more into the weeds of things, why did I decide to use Python for this class? In case anyone is wondering, because there are other alternatives, but why did we choose Python? Python is a great object-oriented, interpreted, and interactive programming language. It's widely used as a general purpose and high-level programming language, and it's actually ranked as one of the top 5 programming languages in the world, in case that's helpful for any reason. But really, this tool is very useful for a lot of different resources. As a teaching and scripting language, it's been used as an essential tool by programmers, engineers, researchers, and data scientists across academia, and most importantly, in the industry. It can be used to create many things, including web applications, scripting, interpreting of different tools itself. But what's most relevant for us, it's a very helpful data analytics tool, whether it's about making sense of a data set that you're working with, or scraping and munging and cleaning any publicly accessible data set, or simply automating a task. You will find Python to be pretty agile in this type of endeavor. And the reason Python is so versatile and widely used is because it's relatively simple and easy to learn syntax. And there's a huge ecosystem around it that's building really powerful packages and specific tools that we'll be using throughout this class. And so the main reason of having these pre-built tools for statistical analysis, those will be prevalent throughout our demo notebooks. Usually I'll break down a formula piece by piece so we understand the different components. And then I'll show you how we can actually replace that all with one line of code that can replicate the entire process that was built by Python itself. So really to understand the different formulas, why they work, and then we'll replace it with some code that just does it for you. So these tools go from very basic analysis to some complex deep learning and data science frameworks that are really quite powerful and that we use on a daily basis at work. So kind of once you get to know the building blocks of Python, that's what's so exciting. You can really do so many different things with it. So that's really why I chose this. It's ubiquitous in the data science industry. And if you find yourself enjoying this language, it can really take you very far, especially on your resume and as a professional tool that you can bring to your teams and be able to interact with any of the technical side of data analysis. So other software that we can compare to Python for background information would probably be Excel or RStudio. And the textbook actually provides code for running all of this analysis using these tools if you're interested. But we decided to use Python over R Excel because of all the powerful features that are really just native to Python. And in my experience, Python was more intuitive to learn, and hopefully it will benefit your resume. And again, lastly, like if you have no coding experience prior to this class, do not worry. You're in good hands. You'll be all right. I have a lot of the code already there for you, and a lot of it will just be interpreting it and reusing it to suit new needs. So really, if you have no prior coding experience, you will be okay. I learned coding in my master's degree, and since then, it really takes a little bit of a learning curve, but once you get through that, kind of the possibilities are endless. So that's why I chose Python. And another aspect is that Python is a framework for research that's reproducible, which means that it can be rerun by anyone and they'll obtain the same results as you did. You know, compared to something like Excel, which might be a little bit more manual, without this aspect of just run everything through. This is a particularly important feature. So for all homework assignments, we'll write our code in Python using Google Colab. And Google Colab is a cloud-hosted notebook environment. I chose this because it requires no setup or installation. You can really just hit the ground running by clicking a link through any Gmail account. For those who might not have a New Paltz Gmail account, any Gmail account is fine. And a notebook, if you've never seen one before, is essentially just an environment for writing interactive code that takes a single input and executes them and returns the result to the user. So everything is automatically saved on the cloud, which is kind of a nice feature. You can work from anywhere. And it'll still be there when you return to it. And especially if you're collaborating with others, you can both work in the same notebook at the same time, which is always kind of a neat feature. So if anyone's familiar with a Jupyter notebook, Google Colab is exactly the same environment and just hosted online. Again, this is all free to use and there's no installation required of any new software. Everything was chosen because there's no prior coding experience required. So again, Python is relatively straightforward to start running quite quickly. So the learning curve might appear intimidating, but please don't let it. You will see within a short period of time, you'll be able to conduct some really sophisticated analysis that can be shared and used to evaluate and find solutions to real life business problems. Lastly, I'll also be using GitHub to share all of our class Python demonstrations in an effort to be open source with our content. So this location will be accessible in the future, and I'll share it in on our Blackboard channel. And GitHub for those who are not familiar with it, is a code hosting platform for version control and collaboration. It lets you and others work together on projects from anywhere. And from a professional perspective, a GitHub account is a perfect place to showcase any case studies and demonstrate your ability to code for any technical role you may consider in the future. I know for me, whenever we're hiring applicants, one of the first places I look is on their GitHub account. So I would encourage everyone in this class to create a GitHub account, and any of the case studies we go through in class, it could benefit you to upload them to your GitHub profile so that you can promote your abilities from this class and your professional endeavors. So this is what my GitHub account looks like, and you'll see the repository for our class called BUS 509. With my Hawkmail username. And what's nice about using Google Colab also is that there's a straightforward way to directly connect your code to GitHub. You can copy the entire notebook using this handy feature. So I won't go through this too much, but definitely feel free to reach out with any questions, because you can directly upload any of your Google Colab notebooks to GitHub, and it'll create this copy for you. And it could be kept for future reference in class. So if you clicked on this little link on any of my notebooks on our repo, it will bring you exactly to the Colab notebooks from all our demos and assignments. So getting into some of the finer details of how to do homework assignments using our Blackboard website. You will use a menu option of assignments. You'll see here, this is where all of our homeworks will live throughout the semester. I'll continue to post the upcoming assignments in case you wanted to get a head start on any future assignments. You have unlimited attempts to complete any of them, but the last assignment submitted before the deadline will be the version that I grade. And one thing to mention, in Python, everything is counted starting at 0 rather than 1. And actually, most programming languages do the same thing. Why? Counting from 0 actually encourages us to use asymmetric ranges to express intervals. And it's actually more efficient than starting from 1. And there's kind of a lot of other reasons if you're curious to look into it. But since I started learning Python, I started to count from 0 in a lot of other different avenues of life. And the rest of our class will follow suit. So this is why we start with module 0 and with homework 0. And that's just explaining the rationale behind that. So all homework assignments will be Colab notebooks. In order to submit your homework, you will need to create a text submission and paste a link to your notebook. The only really important parts to this is make sure it is shared with my email address so that I can access it and open it. If maybe as a contingency plan, you wanted to download it and upload it as an attachment to the homework assignment as well, just in case you're worried maybe the first time, definitely open to that. But as long as I can open and access it, I can leave comments, and that probably would be the best way for us to move forward with grading your homework assignments. So please make sure when you submit it that the share options on the assignment are with my email address. And the requirements for the homework, this is again listed in the syllabus, but I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the key points that I will be considering. Especially as I mentioned earlier, I encourage you to collaborate and work with your peers. It's the best way to transfer knowledge and really hone in on any of your strong suits and balance that with other students' strong suits. So any homework assignment, you must list if you did work with someone else, who you worked with and what your contribution was. And there is no penalty if you declared not to have had any contribution, but just to have followed along and learned. But missing this contribution statement about who the student worked with and what they did, or any inconsistencies between any of the statements between students within the group that cannot be easily reconciled, will cost 10% of the grade. So these details are listed in the syllabus in addition to all the due dates. We'll go through a little bit more on how the notebook should look as we get into our first assignments. Some other notes to consider though, You must have a description of the assignment with clear indication of the question that you're actually answering. This will really help your future reference when you want to see and look back at your notes and look at what did we do and what does this all mean. So having a clear description of this is what's in the notebook and then show it and then here are the answers, that will greatly facilitate your future reference and also grading and giving you full credit for your work. Another point to talk about is all plots that you create must be able to render and your code must execute. So if there are errors in running anything, I will need to deduct some points from the total score. And we'll talk a little bit more about what the plots will look like and the required items that should be there. So all graphs also must have an interpretation of what am I looking at? What is this graph? And this also kind of supports the whole communication side of statistics and really taking that creative side in visualizing data. And I need to see underneath a graph an explanation of what am I looking at, what's interesting, and what are the takeaways. So again, I'll talk a little bit more about this because we'll have a little demo of how that might look. So, and lastly, any code that is used from another source, contribution must be disclosed. So definitely once you get into Python, you'll see that some resources like Stack Overflow are amazing. Part of coding is really just knowing the right question to ask and having the perseverance to continue trying to figure it out. So you must just disclose where you got the source code from. Definitely promote using other people's work, but as long as you give that contribution back, then we're all good. So to start using Google Colab, all you need is a Google account, which is provided by your Hotmail email address. And using this link, which is provided in the module course content, this will take you directly to a Colab homepage where you can select new notebook, and that will bring you to a brand new notebook. We'll go into a demo of the Colab environment momentarily before we dive in the interface. You can also kind of think about this as a playground to run code and also organize text and information. You can rename the notebooks and add Markdown for text or execute code. So something like Markdown is where you would write the description of what's going on in this notebook, and code is kind of similar. If anyone has worked with R, that's when you would run something. All right, and that definitely brings us to the end of this lecture of me talking at you. Feel free to ask any questions, follow up with me on Slack with some of the details. I didn't want to get too much into just going through the syllabus together because really I hope that you can read through that on your own and follow up with any questions. The first homework, everything is really all on Blackboard for what needs to get done by when. So for our first homework assignment, it's going through the different demos from a contribution that I put up there. All about just how to use Python. And my expectations for that is that you create a notebook, go through some of the steps, just really familiarize yourself with using this type of language before we even dive into statistics. So next week, we'll get a lot more into statistics itself, and really Python will just be a tool that supports that. So I'm really excited to dive in to this demo about how to use a notebook structure, how to write in Markdown, and how to run code. And this marks the end of our first lecture together. You will also have some assigned readings that are on the module assignment as well. And please feel free to reach out with any questions. Okay, so next I will talk about this notebook demo, which I just opened up. A new notebook, which you can do from that link that I showed before. Actually, I'm going to bring this screen over here so you can see me and I can see the virtual you. All right, so this is what a notebook looks like when you open it. I just left a couple of different infrastructure things just to remind myself what did I want to go over. So let's say we wanted to name this to something else. Let's call this introduction demo. And there, that'll save. Something to talk about when you see this, it's going to start with nothing. But once you start putting in code and markdown, it looks pretty nice. So one thing to talk about just when we use notebooks or any type of Python, all packages that you might use, and a package is pretty much any toolkit that was developed by someone else. Something similar to like in R, I'm sure there's lots of different tools and packages that you might use. Python has a very similar thing. So you'll probably mostly use something like pandas or NumPy and scikit-learn throughout this class. But it's good practice to make sure that all of your packages that you do use in the notebook is located at the top. And the rationale behind this is that if someone's running through your code and the different packages they need to install aren't all at the top, it might break their code later on. So one thing just to note, whenever you're submitting homework assignments, we're going to follow these principles of best practices. So make sure any package you use is at the top. So for this one, we'll probably, let's just import pandas, which is definitely one of the most useful packages for this class of just working with a data frame and creating different assignments. So running a code block is pretty much what I'm doing right now, just by hitting that little play button, and we see there are no errors so far. So that's just one thing to talk about. This was writing code and running it. So now let's talk about what Markdown might look like. Something handy to also talk about, there's lots of ways to insert code or a text block, and text block means Markdown. So text block, you would click using that, code is here, but also there's some shortcuts like using clicking A on your keyboard, or B will make a new cell below it. So a lot of the stuff is online. If you wanted to get more familiar with it as we work through it, you will get the hang of things very quickly. I'm very confident. So this is a Markdown. It was made just by creating that text button. And it's pretty user-friendly, I would say, when you want to create some text for this. So let's just call this, this is the title. If anyone's familiar with Markdown, you can use different hashtags to make your header size smaller, but it doesn't need to be too pretty, just needs to mostly have the written content there. So let's call this introduction and say the purpose. All right, so for a notebook with a little bit more content in it, you'll see more of like lists and bullet points of what will be in the notebook, but this one will be pretty short because really I just wanted to show you what it looks like to have code. This is a comment, anything with a hashtag in front of it in a code block. You know, this won't run anything because it's all in a comment. So the tutorials for our homework 0 will show you some of these basic syntax for Python, but definitely don't worry too much about learning all the different syntax, because all the code for our class modules going forward will pretty much be provided for you. So all you need to do is be able to understand what it is and reuse it in the future. So definitely don't feel too overwhelmed by all of this right now. I'm hoping that with a little bit of time, it'll become familiar and we'll be able to really build upon all the statistics concepts using Python as our tool. So the last thing I wanted to discuss is really about creating a plot and the different components that are required. So this is just some code that creates a number line. So let's actually, I'll add a comment there. So anything in green, it won't run, but this is just calling a series. It just makes a list of of numbers. So I saved this as a variable, s equals this series. And if I actually wanted to see what's in that, I can then click run and see what is in S. So we see there's just 3 numbers that go 1, 2, 3. So for other assignments, all right, you know, it's going to be a little bit more more meaningful than this, but for now, let's just see what that would look like as a plot, which is what I do by using .plot, .line, creates a line plot where we see 0, 1, 1, 3, 2. So that's what this is here. Sorry, I messed that up. That's just 1, 3, 2 on the y-axis. But see, it's really hard to know what it is we're looking at because there's no axis labels and title. And as we get into data visualization as one of our modules, a lot of this will become clearer, but just for our introduction class, I want to talk about some things that I'll be looking for your assignment. So even having comments to tell me what it is that is going to be going on in this code cell is very helpful. So that'll be part of what I look for. So having each cell on its own is useful. So let's say this will be show the plot. This cell is just define variable. Okay, so I just wanted to organize this a little bit more to explain what we need to have for the plot. So something like a title as one point. So you would do something like that. This needs to say demo plot. But again, when we have more meaningful data, I would want to see a better title for explaining what's in the plot. Let's make so let's just show you what that might look like. All right, well, I need to import the matplotlib package for this. And I put it back at the top. That's why we're seeing this error, because I didn't define it. But that is what we'll use. So we'll need to rerun that again. And now let's show what that would look like. All right, so now we have our title. This is a demo plot. Another item that you'll need to have is X label, which let's just pretend this is, number of pens in a cup throughout 3 different samples. So we take 3 samples. First, there's 1 pen in a cup, then there's 3, and lastly, there's 2. So let's change this. Pens in cup. So the X label is along the X axis. Let's call this sample interval, and the Y label is number of pens. And now we see on our plot that now I am understanding a little bit more what it is that I'm looking at. So we're seeing these are pens in a cup, and we see first there's 1, then there's 3, and then there's 2. It's a little confusing because we have these intervals. Really, if we wanted to make this look more interpretable, we would only have 0, 1, and 2. But for the purposes of this demo, I would say it doesn't really matter too much. So the last element that is very important is what I mentioned before, having this interpretation of what it is that I'm looking at and why does it matter. So I think I did that a little too quickly, so I'll do it again. You can just create a text block right below this graph, and I will write, this is a plot about pens sampled over time. just first tell me what it is I'm looking at. Second, what stands out to you. Perhaps for me, it goes up at 3. So that's kind of interesting. And if this was actually real world data that had a little bit more meaning, I would try to draw another conclusion of, why is this important? Perfect. For an assignment, just tell me what I'm seeing and why does it matter and what do you find interesting about it? So any plot that we have in any of our homeworks, these are the core elements I would expect to see, which is a title and axes labels and a brief description below it. So talking a little bit about what this might look like when you upload it to Blackboard, all you would need to do is share it and change the link address. Either share it with me. If you wanted to share it with any collaborators you work with, go ahead through that way. But make sure that anyone with this link can at least view it. For me, I need to be able to comment on it. So you can change that and then just copy and paste this link to your Blackboard assignment. And things are continuous to be changed within it, but I'll be able to see the change log. So if things are changed after the deadline, those will not be graded. I'll be able to see that everything was completed before the deadline for the different assignments using this revision history tool. But see, we didn't have to install anything or have any software to buy. It's all open source and free online. And I guess just to show you what it would look like to save a copy in GitHub, it would just be through this file. So save a copy in GitHub. I have it connected to my GitHub repo already. I would just need to change the module path, which I believe I have it as. Let's just see how this looks. And again, don't worry too much about this. I just wanted to show you because I think it's cool, where something like this will have creating a copy. And now you will see it right here in our module 0, which has our introduction, the homework, each video that we use as just an introduction from Crash Course Statistics, which is a really great resource. And everything will be also on our Blackboard website. So don't worry too much about using GitHub. I just wanted it as a future resource for the class and for promoting open source development. All right, well, thank you all for watching this. Please feel free to ask any questions. Let me stop sharing my screen. And feel free to provide feedback and ideas for how you'd want this class to look. So I'll be looking forward to seeing you on Slack and all your introductions. And I'm looking forward to the start of the semester. So thank you all. And let's learn some statistics.